Welcome to Spiritual Steps, a podcast about learning to pray, listen, and grow by taking small steps on the spiritual journey. I'm your host, Stephen Hovatter, and this is episode 5, Small Denials. In this episode, I want to encourage you to consciously take up some sort of small denial, like a MiniFast, and allow that act of abstention to focus your will on the way of Jesus. I'm releasing this episode right before Ash Wednesday, and so you may want to think about it in terms of a fast during the Lent season. But even if you're hearing this at some other time of the year, there's a place for intentional abstention, for holding back, for restraining yourself as a practice of the spiritual life. Fasting is an old spiritual discipline. It plays a part in almost every world religion that I know of, and for really good reason. Like food, is such a central and regular part of our lives, and so it provides the opportunity to disrupt your normal, your regular life. And thus it provides a means by which you can focus your attention on things that you normally don't notice, and you can practice the art of restraint. Attention, particularly spiritual attention, is hard to come by. It's really hard to come by in our age of consistent and continual distraction. One of the ways you can develop your capacity for spiritual attention is by routine disruption. Now, I mean routine here, I mean it to carry double meaning, like disturbing the routine, the pattern of your life, and also disturbing it routinely. Routine disruption is about the intentional regularity of irregularity. Routine disruption can allow you to have wake-up moments where you see the world through fresh and newly focused eyes, and it can be an experience that's intentionally repeated to open yourself up to new layers of insight and understanding, and that can happen over and over and over again for cumulative effect. Now, in this small step, today's small step, this act of small denial, I want to offer the idea of these MiniFasts as a way of practicing and developing these moments where you begin to develop a disciplined will with the capacity to focus your attention step by step on the life of the Spirit. In a small denial, what you want to do is you want to make an internal and intentional act of abstaining from something that you would otherwise enjoy. Okay, now that is like a huge field of stuff. So we're going to be a little more specific about that because in this exercise, I want to make it as simple and easy as possible. This small step really only requires you to make 2 choices. We just want to have a quick way of getting into this kind of process. So here's what you need to do. You need to choose your target and you choose your time. Now, when I say target, I mean choose the thing that you plan to deny yourself, okay? Now, it's fine if there's a certain level of arbitrariness here. It's not. What's important is not that you pick something that's negative that you want to break away from. I mean, that's a different kind of discipline. We'll talk about that another day. But the target here isn't really, the intention isn't that we purge ourselves from something evil. It's that we practice the discipline of voluntary abstention, voluntarily abstaining from something which you would otherwise consume without any kind of moral harm really associated to it. So it's okay. It's fine if there's an arbitrary nature to the choice of whatever it is that you were going to abstain from. This is something that you're foregoing for the sole purpose of focusing your spiritual life and developing discipline. It's not because it's bad for you, it would save you some money, or because refraining from it would cause some other sort of good benefit, like you lose weight or whatever, okay? What we're after is the abstention itself, the act of self-denial, the act of self-restraint. That's the heart of what we want to work on with this thing. So you want to pick a target, and it can be open to anything. It can be some physical thing that you enjoy, okay, like food that you enjoy taking in, or it can be some kind of practice that you normally, involve yourself in, and you want to kind of hold off and have a moment of rest and stillness instead of that, or really can be anything. It could be using a certain kind of language in your conversation, things that you would normally talk about or point out in a certain way, whatever it is, okay. But you pick the target, okay, and make it as clear the constraints of what that are as possible. So I remember I was in a group one time that had this practice of fasting together, and our practice is that we could not that we would not fast until after we had this moment of Bible study during the day, until after some time, because this is a different sort of practice. But and I remember us like all talking and like trying to parse out like what the meanings were. It was like kind of pharisaical in some ways. Like, we were thinking, is it okay to eat the peppermint before you've had your, is it okay? What about gum? You don't swallow gum. You're not getting nutrition from it. I mean, maybe that's okay. And, all right, so there's some silliness to that, certainly some arbitrariness to that. And you know what? That's okay. Define what it is and be as clear as you can, and, give yourself like really defined constraints about what it is that you're going to avoid in your little mini fast, okay? Now, second, the mini fast needs to have a particular defined time dimension to it. This isn't an ongoing and indefinite fast. We're not necessarily making a life choice to abstain from something forever. Okay, that's a different kind of commitment. But this is for a set period of time. Now, that might just be like one afternoon or a particular day or even during a simple meal. It might have some sort of repetition, like I'm going to do this on Tuesdays for the month of March, or, certainly for, the season of Lent. Many people do that. But whatever it is, you want to define that time dimension to this and make it something that's reasonable, something that has a beginning and an end and a start point, and the contours of what those things are. And when it's outside of those time constraints, then, feel free to regain and take part in whatever it is that you were fasting. Like, break your fast and do it intentionally and deliberately, and be just as conscious about being thankful in the moment of breaking the fast as you are in the discipline of restraining yourself. Okay, so there's that. So make your two choices. Okay, decide what the target of your fast is going to be, and decide the time dimension to it. Now, these two dimensions, the arbitrariness of the decision of the target and the definition of the particular time period, they provide the opportunity for you to really constrain this practice into something that's easily doable and easily repeatable. Now, this is a small step, right? Like this whole thing about this podcast, small steps, small spiritual steps. But this is a small step that you can repeat over and over again, maybe with different constraints, different factors that are your targets, or different time dimensions. And you can, in that repetition, begin to build up your capacity for restraint over time. As you practice this discipline of small denial, there's a couple of things that are going to happen. Like, one of those is that you are going to, whenever you practice this discipline, you pursue this discipline of choosing to forgo something just for the sake of practicing denial and practicing spiritual tension and focus, you begin to build mastery over your will, mastery over your desires. So restraint in our world, our society, our time, and really, truth be told, in any society, in any time, in any culture, restraint is never the norm. We're often at the whims of our appetites, at the whims of our passions. We get carried away in things. And that leads to all kinds of ill. Whenever your appetite is driving you, whenever your passions are driving you, and I mean passions like just like loose emotions, right? You can be really in trouble. All right. So what we're after here is we're after learning to cultivate the appropriate kinds of appetites and passions that will fuel our spiritual journey, not those that will take us in harmful and negative roads, okay? And with practice, we can develop that. We can develop our capacity for restraint in a way that moves us forward. Now, the second thing that happens is that we become more aware of ourselves as physical and spiritual beings. We become more conscious of all sorts of things, like our consumption habits and our prayer habits and our attention to the things that happen with a dimension of spirituality in our lives. We find that turning our attention to prayer really develops, now, not in some kind of magical way, but it begins to develop our perspective of the spiritual world that we all live in. And this isn't, like I said, it's not a magic way. It's not a secret formula. Okay, this isn't like push a button and you get this result, but it is a way of developing a capacity like over time. Okay, we're like flexing a muscle, and if we use this muscle often enough, we continue to push it and stretch it and grow it, over time it will strengthen and it'll develop. So, none of that's going to happen magically the first time around. But it takes practice and development. It's an ongoing process. It's because one of the reasons that I think that so many people found the practice of Lent helpful because it's this cyclical event. It keeps coming around every year, year after year. And, it may be that one practicing Lent, like one season, might not really that much of a difference in your life. But if you honor the practice of restraint year after year or week by week or month by month, then cumulative results can begin to take shape in your life, okay? And that's what this practice is about. This step is about taking small moments of denial and letting them build within you the attention and skill of restraint so that you can really put your energy into what's important in the spiritual life, okay? All right, so that's all for this episode. Thanks for listening. So my name is Stephen Hovatter. You can catch up with me on Twitter at that handle, at Stephen Hovatter, which is linked in the show notes. There's also a link to my other podcast, which is called The Craft of Ministry. If you're a person in ministry, you might want to check it out. And I'd love for you to share this episode with some of your friends. Maybe you can go in with somebody else and practice this discipline of fasting together. I think that's a great way of practicing community in the discipline. Help me spread the word. Another way you can do that is by submitting a review on iTunes. So if you have time, appreciate you doing that. And please remember to subscribe to your podcast app choice. It's iTunes or Overcast. Overcast is the one I love. Whatever. And we'll be back with a new episode next week. Until then, keep taking the next step that you see in front of you, and may God be with you on each step of your journey. Peace.